Good morning. Good morning. This is Nathaniel Lee. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us again today for our long running show. And we will be joined today by the superstar attorney, Vanita Banks, who is a master in tax, cyber security expert, and that famous attorney from LA who represented Rodney King that started the modern day videotaping, Milton Grimes. It was a change in the law based on the King case. A lot of people don't realize how significant that is today. We saw the remnants of that in the George Floyd case. Video evidence became paramount in these civil cases and criminal cases. But before we get started, a couple announcements. Historical precedent has been set. Indiana will have two Black U.S. attorneys in the federal system. And the reason that's important, at no time in the history of this state have we ever had an African-American or Black person occupy the U.S. Attorney's Office. U.S. Attorney in each state represent the most powerful law enforcement person in the state because the U.S. Attorney has the power to arrest the governor or the mayor, for example. And so as a result, that person has a significant amount of power. And we're just very thankful to the Biden administration for seeing fit. Also on the horizon is that we're working now, of course, we're going to have a vacancy in the federal court. We're going to work, of course, to try to add one more African American. Stay tuned, and I'll be working on that over the next coming months. And on top of that, there also has been some issues that are relevant, and we'll start off. We have some interesting topic today. Vanita Banks is going to update us on gerrymandering. And but the hottest issue this week, the hottest issue is the legal issue dealt with the firing of John Gruden. And Milton Grimes can start us off with that story because I think that he's got an interesting perspective. Attorney Grimes, John Gruden.
Yes, good morning. Can I just ask a question before I get into that, though? You said you have two African-American U.S. attorneys. Those are not supervisory attorneys or head attorneys. They are just deputy U.S. attorneys.
No, sir. The head person in Indiana for the last 3 centuries or whatever our legal system was established, we never had a Black person occupy a U.S. attorney or U.S. magistrate or U.S. attorney up until the appointment of Tanya Warren Pratt under the Obama administration. She's been an outstanding federal judge. Now we made history. We're one of the few states in the country now that have 2 Black U.S. attorneys. The head person head the federal agencies in our state in northern and southern district. Okay. Now that's significant because African American in our state are about 9.8% of the population. Right. Now we represent 100% of the head people that occupy justice system. That's an important appointment because the Justice Department have millions of dollars in crime prevention money and things like that. And historically speaking, as you know, Milton, we've always gotten a short end of the sticks in terms of federal type prosecution, investigation, otherwise. Right. So now we hopefully can have some fundamental fairness in the system.
I just wanted to get it clear. Thank you very much, Nate. You know, I don't know if you. Go ahead, Vanita.
Go ahead, Attorney Banks.
I was going to ask on that same point, Attorney Lee, who are those U.S. attorneys?
Well, let me give you the confirmation date. The 2 U.S. attorney, first, we got Zach Myers. Zach Myers' dad, as you know, he is very fascinating because his daddy, Woody Myers, a friend of mine, ran for governor of Indiana. And I've known Dr. Myers for a long time. And his son, Zach, had worked previously at a law firm in the city. And he was one of the few African Americans that worked for the Department of Justice here in Indianapolis under our mayor, now Joe Hogsett. And then Zach left Indiana and went to Maryland, and he worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland, and he's been appointed the U.S. Attorney here in Indianapolis. The second one, of course, was Clifton Johnson. Cliff Johnson was a lawyer who worked for the Department of Justice. And what was the remarkable thing about it, the process here was done kind of odd. At first, I was the lead person that headed up the unit that selected these folks. And then the Biden administration took it away, and then they gave it to Andre Carson, and then they took it away and then gave it to Dick Young, but the people that were on the list ultimately was the one confirmed on my list. So I was happy to see that occur. And our goal was with the Biden administration is to make history with the federal appointments. The Democratic voting population is about 35% of their base, and we wanted to make that reflected in their appointments. And surprisingly, the Biden administration is on point to hit those goals. Of all these appointments, like U.S. attorneys, we've exceeded the 30% goal already. And I'm really happy about that in terms of federal judges, the Seventh Circuit, African-American. So of all the appointments in our district, they've all been African-American, and that's historic. We did not accomplish that on Obama, Clinton, or anybody. It's just very historic appointment. And so for those folks who don't realize the significance of that, I want you to look at our prison system, see who is populated. There's a direct correlation between prison population and the people who had these offices. The system, we think, has never been fair to minorities, and I know Milton could probably address this more so than me. But so all we're trying to do, my work in this area is try to make it fundamentally fair for all citizens, including Black folks. Mm-hmm. And that's my goal, is that I don't practice criminal law, but I understand the important significance of having people that look like us in those important positions. They're historic, and hopefully they're going to do an outstanding job. I know both gentlemen have outstanding credentials, and they could not have found any more person more qualified than the people they selected.
Good.
Attorney Lee.
Good.
Attorney Lee?
Yes.
Thank you for that. My Clifton Johnson is, of course, a superstar, and my law school classmate from Valparaiso Law School. We graduated from law school in the same year, so I'm really excited about his appointment.
Good deal. Maybe you give him a call. He's got confirmed by the Senate on September the 30th.
Good.
It was pretty much unanimous. What the Biden did, I didn't like their process initially. The Biden administration, they gave authority to Senator Young to bootstrap the applicant. So he had final say on the people that we had selected for these positions. And I felt that the process may be partially sabotaged, but luckily they didn't change it dramatically from the initial inception. So the process is working, although a little bit rocky, somewhat delayed. Now, my only criticism, of course, is that I thought there's something that we should have done back in January. In other words, these folks, in my mind, should have been confirmed, not later than March of this year, but better late than never.
Good. Good, Nate. Well, maybe we'll now be able to get that statue of Robert E. Lee and the slave and on the horse out of that circle there in Indianapolis now.
I got to ride by there. You said that. I got to ride by there and see, because, it's funny that my office is only 2 blocks away, and I got to ride by there and take a look at what you're talking about. I got to be honest with you. The only time I paid attention to the circle is that we have this gigantic Christmas tree there, and they have celebrations, stuff like that. But my office looks at it from the north side and the east side, and I don't have a view of the south side, but I'm going to ride by there, take a picture of that this week.
That's one way to avoid it, by putting it out of your mind. But when I came to Indiana, that's Indianapolis, that's the first thing I saw, and it always has stayed with me. Okay, you asked me, and I like teasing you about it. You asked me about John Gruden, and how do I say this, Nate? I know I've mentioned this book, Robert E. Lee and Me by Ty Sedol, and he talks about this language and communication underneath between white supremacists and racists that exist to this day, and how they won't let the Confederacy ideology die, and how there is still an existence of communication, belief, and goal of white supremacists in this country. And the type of emails you see from Gruden, he's in a powerful position as a coach. He was opposed to the drafting of a gay football player. He had a comment to make about that. He called the Godell a P-U-S. He had all these kinds of comments to belittle people who supported homosexual men playing football. He had a negative comment 10 years ago about the brother who's the head of the Players Association.
That's Demar Smith. He's been on our show.
Yeah. I mean, talking
Brilliant.
about.
He's the best that we've ever had in that position. He's a brilliant lawyer. They've got record amount of revenue for a player. He's just done an outstanding job. And I thought he did an outstanding response to this whole episode. I thought it was just brilliant.
Yeah, and Gruden couldn't get him to call him back when the things hit the fan and came out. The brother said, "I'm not dealing with that ignorant man," But Gruden has been a bully ever since he's been in the NFL. So now we know he was a racist bully. You follow me? And I really can't imagine how he has treated either overtly or African American players. But anyway. And now McVeigh out here in California says, well, he was a mentee of Gruden since he was a little boy. And he never heard or seen or suspected any such thoughts or behavior on the part of Gruden. That has to be one of the biggest lies since Donald Trump became president. I can't believe that. If I'm your mentee and I sit at your knee and I know your thoughts and you've trained me, I know what you feel about homosexuals. I know what you feel about minorities. So I don't know how he thinks he can sell that lie, but he put it in the paper, denied any knowledge of it. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people running away from John Gruden and his obvious feeling about minorities and people that are not like him. So I respected what he's done in football, but I was never a fan of his because I didn't like his strut. I didn't like his disposition and his arrogance. But I'm sure that there's some others that's going to fall out of this investigation of his emails. So that's what I have to say. And we need to clean it up. Like I mentioned last week, I don't know if you and Vanita paid attention to what I was saying. You usually don't, but this guy, a friend of mine, we were on a Zoom meeting and she had a caricature with her. And I saw it and I kept seeing it, like you see this display of art in my background. And I kept seeing it and I kept trying to see what it was. So I just I didn't want to disturb the meeting because it was about one issue and it's a very serious issue. I had to call her on that a day later and ask her, what was that? And she said, oh, it's just a monkey. A friend of mine gave me from South Africa. I said, but no, that didn't look like no monkey. It had a hat on. She said, oh, no, it didn't have a hat on. So I'll send you a video of it. So she sent me a video of it. And I've shown it to 3 people. They said, that's a caricature. That's depicting an African-American person, your and my complexion, not the silky black of most caricatures, but the big eyes and the lips and everything else. So I said, I'm gonna give her one more chance. I'm gonna try to find me an African brother to look at it and tell me what is that depicting from West Africa, because it was a caricature. But I think she may be innocent and naive about its true. I want to give her the benefit of that doubt. You follow me? But so I think basically what I'm trying to say is that we got to uproot this racism throughout all of our culture and everywhere we see it, no matter how minor it may appear. We got to uproot it. And that's what I'm about. Thank you.
Well, I agree with Attorney Banks, and I concur because I think it's our job to try to help educate people in the right direction.
Right.
I think that 4 years of misinformation, we've seen increase in racial hostility among the people. I think is incumbent upon, particularly in the legal community, when you talk about Henry VIII and they say the first thing you do is go out and kill all the lawyers. What they were saying is that lawyers give us stability, they give us guidance. So I think it's incumbent, particularly in the legal community, that we address these issues head on and that we, we can't change the course of the whole country, but we can do it one person at a time. I applaud your effort because this person have thousands of people that she influences. And so by her being educated on these issues, she can educate others. And I think it's a good thing.
Right, right.
And Milton, what's so beautiful about this situation that you described is that, and what's so important is that we engage in the conversations, right? This is a friend of yours who you've known and worked with, a colleague for many, many years, who is displaying this, quote, so-called art, right? And as a result of your conversation, she may be informed and educated. And I think that is a good thing. Many times when we look at some of these societal issues, we can easily become overwhelmed because there's just so much that's happening. But I like to break it down, each one teach one, and one person at a time, and that's how I address these huge, important societal issues. And of course, I agree with Attorney Lee that attorneys are just natural leaders in our society, and that we have an obligation to lift as we climb and to advocate these kinds of issues.
Attorney Banks, Attorney Grimes, you have somebody got several questions about something going on in LA. One of our callers want to know about LA Councilman Mark Ridley's Thomas indictment. What is that all about? It's kind of caught me off guard.
Well, as I mentioned before we started the program to you, he has been indicted by the federal government for, I think the Uber driver last night said it was 22 counts. I haven't read this morning's paper because I'm 3 hours behind you two. Y'all wake up 3 hours ago. I just woke up. But Mark has gotten himself in a little crossfire here starting with the need for his son to have some type of employment without going into all of it. And he wanted to devise a way to help his son become employed and successful. He was having problems. He got charged with sexual harassment up in the Senate up in Sacramento. So he had to resign and come home. And now he's, kind of, Daddy, what can I do? I got to make some money. I got some troubles. I've had 5 surgeries. I got problems. And so his dad think, okay, if I direct some money over here to USC, to this person I know that's the head of this department, and I can't remember the specific department, then she can give you a scholarship to USC. Number one is what she did. And I will be giving USC the money they need for this particular program that we have. And she will give you a $28,000 a year scholarship, and you will be employed over there, and you make another $50,000. And so what was uncovered and investigated was the lady in that department had to resign because she was doing favoritism for Mark Ridley Thomas. Mark is under pressure to resign as a city councilman because he designated funds of the city to USC and a program that benefited his son. Wow. And they got a lot of paperwork on this. They got a lot of, again, emails from Mark to her discussing some of this, and from his son to him and him to his son. And it looks like the feds, and they've been investigating this because I first heard about it about 2 years ago. So they've been investigating it a couple of years. And Mark is a very big hitter here in LA. I personally don't care for his personality. He is above arrogant. And he's just one of those people. He seems to be effective, though, in government. He's got some programs in existence for the homeless, and he think, I mean, it seems as though he's the man in the politics and the care and the programs for the homeless here in LA, but it looks like he's in trouble.
Wow. Attorney Banks, what's amazing is all these people get indicted about USC. I mean, this is freaking me out. I saw the jury verdict of the people that apparently bribed someone to get their kids in USC. That's a very popular school. I mean, it seems like they're on the news all the time. It's incredible.
Even in the good days, USC was known as a connected school. If you went to USC, you're connected. You'll be connected with things happening outside because they had influence in a lot of things happening throughout the state.
Wow. Well, I can say that both my niece and nephew, who are outstanding professionals. My niece is a principal at a elementary school in California, and my nephew is with the LA Fire Department, and they're both proud graduates of USC San Diego.
The University of USC of Southern California, University of Southern California.
The University of, yes, at San Diego, right?
I don't know.
It's in LA.
Campus. UC is all over the state. USC is based here in LA, Vanita. So that's all I'm asking. Is it?
They're part of that USC system.
Okay. They may have a campus that I'm not familiar with in San Diego.
You got that gigantic bug there. You see it?
Well, I don't like to kill spiders. I'm out on my patio on my deck, and he belongs out here as much as I do, maybe more so, Nate.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody else would have killed him by now. I know. My family.
Well, I hope they don't bite you. Okay. Okay.
Listen, with the mosquito infestation we have here in California, spiders are welcome if they kill one mosquito to me.
Okay.
In their little webs.
Well, the second issue is Attorney Banks. She had some update on this gerrymander she was concerned about. What's your thought process on this gerrymander, Attorney Banks?
Well, as a result of the 2020 census, and that's why this is one of the reasons, primary reason why it's so important to participate in the census, that as you know, congressional maps are being redrawn across the country. For example, Illinois lost one of its congressional seats. And here in Illinois, the way that the initial maps have been drawn, they've been drawn in a way that may jeopardize a couple of, or at least a couple, if not more, Republican seats. But starkly in Texas, the maps have been redrawn so that Sheila Jackson Lee, who succeeded to the seat of Barbara Jordan, her district has in effect been destroyed, the 18th district in Texas, and she will be pitted against one of the only African-American congressmen from the state of Texas, the Representative Al Green. And we just haven't seen this in, 50 years, effectively destroying her district, pitting her against Al Green, who's in the 9th district. And the composition of the 18th district would remove downtown Houston, where Jackson's main office is located, 2 universities, and the predominantly Black Third Ward neighborhood, which is the center of Houston Black life. Those communities are being removed from the 18th district. So this is a stark example of racial gerrymandering, which should be a violation of the Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Civil Rights Act, and should definitely require pre-clearance.
Well, here in Indiana, we see that my congressional person is Spark, who's a Russian, somehow got elected through the Republican process. And they're gerrymandering in her district, thank God, to get out of Indianapolis. So I think good riddance. And, you know, I like to have somebody from America represent American values and stuff, be in my representation in Congress. But it was a terrible thing that they did in the last census where they gerrymandered part of our district, the north side of Indianapolis, and put us in a district that where the representatives do nothing to protect our interests. What was insulting, this week, our congressional person sent out a mailer to all the voting people about Medicare and things like that, that she voted against increases in Congress. It was an ultimate in a hypocrisy where these elected officials apparently they think all the voters are completely ignorant. So she would take credit of something that the Democrats did and somehow populate that and think, well, you voted against that, so why are you taking credit for it in your mailing? It just, you know, it just blows my mind. So I'm glad that in my district that they're gerrymandering her out of my life.
You know, I got into voters' rights law about 10 years ago out here in California. California in 2002 legislated and then wrote a law and put it into effect, the Voters' Rights Act out here, which requires representation of a significant minority in all areas, all local government, city, county, whatever. And it's so subtle. Discrimination and racism is so subtle. And the way it was buried in the South for years and the way it's buried around this country still is having at-large elections as opposed to district elections, even though your county or city may have a significant 20%, 15% African-American population, that population has no voice according to at-large elections. And so what we've had probably 10 lawsuits. We just won a lawsuit against the city of Santa Monica with only combined Latina and Black population of 13%. But we were able to convince the court that the minority population was excluded from having any influence in the city council and no representation. And so we have been successful at getting districts implemented in areas that have historically had at-large elections where minorities could have no representation. And it's an eye-opener for me because I just was asleep about it. And I thought I was conscious of discrimination in many, and if not all forms. But it's an important thing that we have a voice in these governmental bodies and the voices that we have gotten up to this time. It's important that we hold on to them and not let them be taken by gerrymandering and going back to at-large elections. So it's a serious situation to me.
And it's critical to know.
There was one thing in your state that really caught my interest on the gerrymandering, because Illinois is losing one congressional seat. The fireburned Republican congressman who voted to impeach Trump, who's on the January 6th commission, looked like he's going to be out of a job.
I noticed that as well. Exactly. Adam Kinzinger,
yes,
is one of those GOP congressmen who may be at risk of losing his job as a result of the redrawing of the maps here in Illinois. And of course, the Democrats are in charge of that process here in Illinois. And in Texas, the Republicans are in charge of redistricting. So it shows you the dichotomy.
Yeah, it's this is an aside, but it's part of what we're talking about. I just got a clipping from a friend of mine in Texas saying that the jury commissioner in this county had picked all white jurors for the last 10 years in cases involving Black defendants, had excluded all Black jurors. And they have documented that. So now they're going to have a review, they should, of all cases involving Black defendants that have taken place for a long period of time, 10 years or more.
Okay, let's take one of our callers. Sure, you have a question or comment for us today.
Thank you for having me. To the panel, thank you for just educating our voters on things and our community. That was a great conversation to look at. Thank you. I called today because one of the problems we have is family breakdowns. And I just want to know how to handle a situation with our children. We have two children fighting, but when they change hands from Indiana to Michigan, how do you supposed to handle custody battles from state to state, especially when the first initial birth of the child were in the state of Indiana? And now that the courts adhered the parent's mother, to adhere to court's rule, now she moved to another county or state. How do people supposed to handle those type of situations? And I'll wait for your answer.
Well, I don't do custody and divorce, but we're pretty simple answer to that. Let me explain to you how the process works. Our states now have uniform divorce and child custody laws, the Uniform Custody Act. So in essence, when a person goes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, the law does not change. So if you get custody in Indianapolis, that respected in the other 49 states. So it becomes what is called res judicata on that issue. Now, you could do a change in custody based on a uniform law, based on a substantial and change in circumstances in the best interest of the child. So the best interest of the child standard applies. Let me give you some salient example. Say you have two parents and one parent's died. And so at the time of death, parent number one who died had custody. Well, custody then transferred to parent number two. But there's always salient issues that come into existence. Say, for example, parent number one who died had grandparents, and the grandparent actually kept the kids. Well, the grandparent in that jurisdiction, for example, caller, could then petition the court for grandparent visitation and then ultimately custody. And so over the years, I've seen this law develop, but ultimately they try to do what's in the best interest of the children, and that's sacrosanct, and that's relevant in every jurisdiction. So the law doesn't change the custody orders from state to state. They honor and respect the judicial determination from one state to another state.
Okay. When they don't comply, do I just go to my state that I resolved in that? Is that okay to do that when they're not complying to the court?
Well, you get a little bit more complicated because, we've done some of these cases pro bono. Okay, say the state of rendition is Indiana and the person moved to Michigan. If the person acquires residency and domicile in Michigan, what you have to do is do a transfer of the custody order from the court in Indianapolis to the court in Michigan. And then that court would give full faith and credit to the Indiana court's decree. And then when you get in that court, then you could, once it's transferred, then you petition the court for a change in custody or whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. Just another educated move. I love this station. Thank you so much.
Okay, and so Larry has a comment about Attorney General. Okay, Larry, what's your comment today?
whenever I see a move like this being made here in this area, it just it clarifies that this city is being used as a laboratory. All that is doing with the de facto judges we have now in Marion County and the connection with the federal court system, these judges are going to be ruling on federal statutes and contracts. So I suggest that's why they got Zach Myers, who is worse than the one boy, the Attorney General Curtis Hill. He's worse than that. So when we rejoice about having colored people appointed to these offices, they're put there for one reason, to commit crimes against their own people. And I think that it's disingenuous, Nate, for you guys to say that you're representing the black community. You're making unauthorized appearances, causing serious damage. I don't want you representing me not one bit, because I can represent myself. And all of you attorneys that are in there complaining about things, what happened? You didn't get slowed down by racism. You made it. Don't you think other people want to make it on their own without being interfered with, without you coming out of your closet, coming out and saying, now that you got plenty of money, all you're doing is putting roadblocks up for us when you talk about racism and so forth that don't really affect you right now, and talk about tearing down statues and stuff. I mean, it's childish. I mean, it's really embarrassing. Man.
Okay, Larry, you made a lot of suggestions. Let me tell our audience something that he just said that's fundamentally false. What our caller just suggested is somehow Zach Myers is some type of corrupt attorney general and bias the community. Folks, that's fraudulent, that's false, and that's disingenuous. The caller apparently don't know Zach Myers. He probably never met him. And so he just kind of made that up. I know Zach Myers. He's an honorable person. His dad's an honorable man. He ran for governor. He didn't win, but he ran. But Zach Myers is a very respectful attorney, and I trust that he would do the right thing, particularly for our community. The second issue that he talked about is that somehow he's upset because we're talking about race issues, and somehow he's upset about that. I don't represent this caller. Not now, not before, not ever. So I don't understand why he thinks that somehow we represent him. We do not. So, but Milton, Vanita, you could add on to that.
I think you've said it well. I don't know the gentleman. But I do know this. I do know that I believe that in my position as a lawyer for 47 years, I have stood up for the rights of all people that I've represented, but especially for the rights of African Americans. And I've tried to make a difference in their life in the judicial system and fought for their rights that I don't believe is as insured and as protected for them as it is for others that get into the legal system. So I don't know where this brother Larry is coming from when he doesn't acknowledge that a lot of things happen because of a person's race. So I disagree with you on that, my brother. Racism does matter, and it does exist, and it does affect all of us, including those of us who have, quote, so you say, made money in this system.
Well, see,
and I agree with all that has been said. I decided to become a lawyer at age 7, and I've always felt and have used the skills that I'm blessed with, and the education that I've been blessed to have obtained in this country. You know, in my household, it wasn't a matter of if you were going to college, it was a matter of where you were going to college. And so I have, as my colleagues on this call, devoted my career toward advocating for the voiceless in our society, and for those members of our communities that cannot advocate for themselves. And that's in all sectors, whether it be in the criminal justice system or in corporate America. You know, I believe that when you have an opportunity to be in the room and the table, you know, turns to you and the question turns to you, and you have an opportunity to advocate on behalf of our communities and you don't, in my opinion, it's a wasted seat. And so those are my views on the caller's comments. And of course, and obviously, racism exists in our country, and it dates back to 1619.
Well, one of the things that most people don't realize is that when I grew up, I probably poured in any of the folks that are calling in, and I think that's important. But what allowed me to go to college in the segregation period that we were in, because I didn't have role models or lawyers and doctors as a kid because of segregation. You know, we had separate but equal schools. I grew up in a segregated school. And so a lot of the benefits we take for granted today, we did not have as a child growing up. What got me out of the poverty and allowed me to go to college is that I was on academic or athletic scholarships. And so that's how I was able to go to school, because my parents had no money to help me go through school. And then law school is the same thing. I got an academic scholarship to go through law school. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to attend law school. But the law school I attended, University of Georgia, had a historical president. The University of Georgia did not allow a Black to attend law school there until 1973, Milton. So throughout this history of the law school, over 150 years, they allowed their first Black student to attend in 1973. And I spoke to the gentleman multiple times. And, you know, I entered there in 1979. And by 1979, the reason I got into law school was that they got sued or threatened to be sued, and they decided to admit more than one Black. But what was fascinating about it, the first law student that attended University of Georgia, and I called him up one day because I headed up the law school fundraising activity, right? So I called him up, and for an hour we talked. This guy was like a billionaire. I mean, he'd done very well. Like most of our graduates, they do very well financially, but he had never contributed a dime. And then he just told me these horror stories of how it was being the first Black to attend law school. Milton.
I can imagine.
It was a fascinating story. And I just shut up. I just listened to God. And out of that conversation, though, it was something remarkable occurred. He said, because you're doing this, I say, because of guys like you, man, I was able to go to law school. Because of guys like you, yeah, we had some racist professors. I remember Imo, he was a closet, well, he's an outright racist. He was my contract professor. I say the guy, he did not like Black folks, and he kind of like, no. And I say, but in law school, I was pretty aggressive. And I didn't take any crap off anybody, you know, because especially a guy who I thought was a racist. And I talked to Dean about the guy, and he tried to give me a lower grade. And so that was a fight that we had back in law school. Mm-hmm. Back in law school, we walked out of class because we wanted a Martin Luther King Day. This national holiday that these called don't know about, it started with the nonviolent peaceful protest. We said, we want a holiday, you know, and so we're in law school. And so they had all the white holidays, but there were no Black holidays that we recognized at law school. So a segregated law school that started a nominal amount of Blacks, and that's what the issue that was raised back in 1980. And a lot of people don't understand the historical significance of that because we didn't have these Black holidays back then. So I thought it was very important. And so having said that, because so many people did so many things for me as a person and a lawyer, I think that I have to get a rope and pull other people over the top also. And that's the social engineering part of what we do as lawyers. So regardless of what the caller thinks, I think that it's incumbent upon people who have been able to have some modicum of success to help other people, particularly Black folks who's not been afforded those opportunities. But having said that,
I'm glad the Biden administration, Nate, has instituted a rule to eliminate that, essentially, hopefully will eliminate privatized prisons, because privatized prisons are making a lot of money off of African-American inmates. It's like a new crop that's growing. They don't have to grow cotton no more. They grow blacks and put them in prison. And it's privatizing the prisons, and they're making a lot of money and not giving them proper service. I just finished a lawsuit against a jail out here in San Bernardino, where a mother of 7 kids died because the jail didn't give her proper medical treatment after she gave birth to her baby.
That's terrible. What did they not do?
They did not treat her for her complaints of pain. When she went to the clinic, they didn't see her. She'd been complaining of pain for a couple of days. Turns out she had a blood clot that they missed.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And I know Attorney Banks had some important thing, because she really gave us a good report on that Texas abortion issue. And Attorney Banks, I forgot to ask you, you gave an excellent report a couple of weeks ago about this draconian Texas law. And have you followed that case? What's the latest on that now? I just thought about that. Speaking of this young lady in jail, has there been any fundamental changes lately?
Well, I didn't know. The law is still in force. And what we're seeing is that, and you'll recall last week we talked about the appellate judge, which within 24 hours after the ban had ruled to continue the original law in place. And I didn't really check to see what happened last week, but I didn't see any further development. What I did see is that you have hundreds of Texas citizens seeking abortions in other states.
Right.
And so that's the development that I'm aware of, and more to follow. The Supreme Court has agreed to take the Mississippi case, which would ban abortions after 15 weeks.
Oh, man. Okay, we got several calls. We'll just take one last call because our phones are ringing. One quick caller before we conclude today. Producer, go ahead. Let the next caller, anonymous, on. Hello, sir. What's your question or comment?
I just wanted to say that it's funny to me, and I'm 32 years old, how the whole dynamic has changed, and this is kind of spinning off the John Gruden topic. The whole dynamic has changed, like as far as us as a people, how we should conduct ourselves, and now it's just pointing the fingers at them. It's kind of odd to me. I'm talking about even like people like I grew up in a Pentecostal household. Their whole views on the LGBT community has changed. Their whole views on abortion has changed. It's like everything has changed. And I don't understand, and I believe it's to the detriment of the black man and the black family. And there's no way around it. People can keep spinning and, oh, well, the Ku Klux Klan doesn't like gays, so let's go ahead and join with them. And it's just all this left-wing nonsense. I am sick of it. I'm sick of it, and I know it's a lot of black men that's out there that's fed up and sick of it. It's a lot. It's not just me.
You're sick of what? Exactly. What are you sick of? I don't understand. You're frustrated because
the whole feminism and LGBT takeover. I'd rather live under white supremacy, honestly. And this whole feminism, black feminism, LGBT takeover. The females think they can run off with their kids. Luckily for me, I won custody of my kids because my children's mother tried to run off and not let me see them, call the police. The white liberals put batteries in black women's back to do that. And that's what messes up our community. And people won't want to say it, but that's the truth.
Were you married?
Now
By the way,
pushing
hey,
this
caller.
vaccine on everybody.
Hey, caller. What was a caller? Were you married at the time that you had this custody battle?
No, it was premarital. Even if we was married.
No. Okay. No. Here's the point I'm making. So you draw moral lines on other folks, but not on yourself, right? So if you think that God says that marriage should be between a man and woman, but it also say that you should not have premarital sex. So I don't understand. So you're taking Christianity.
Come on, man.
No, I'm serious.
Look.
No, I'm serious. You're taking. I grew up. Now hold a second, guy. Let me speak. I grew up in the church too, and I've been a Christian my whole life. But the difference is that I also recognize that I have to live a certain way, and I do this thing the way that God tells me to do it. It's not my job to judge the conduct of other folks. So you're saying that I think that certain type of situation is wrong, but what I did in my own household, I have a different set of rules. So the point I'm making to you is this: be a judge of other people's conduct. I look in the mirror every day and I try to improve what I'm doing myself, the way I treat other people, the way I treat my family, and things like that, the way I treat my community. Let me give you a good example. I was upset at Tesla automobile, and I read in horror the number of racial incidents at Tesla. I owned Tesla stock, and I was making a lot of money. I sold my Tesla stock because I could not support a corporation, and I donated the money to my churches. And that was my way of dealing with what I thought was racial bigotry, and I thought that's important. And I will never buy a Tesla car, and I won't buy Tesla stocks, so long as we have this South African must run the country and doing things that I don't agree with. And that's what I did. So in other words, so I'm saying is that I don't try to judge other people's conduct. I just don't think that's what we should be doing. I think we should try to improve ourselves. Now, having said that,
I agree. I agree with that point, but can I say this?
One final point, make it short.
Look here, I'm not interested in going in all these white men's closet because I can care less what they think. Why are we so ingratiated in the white man's opinion that he has to be let go? We got to get rid of him. He didn't even really say anything racist. It was the LGBT quotes that got him fired.
Okay. Now, very quickly, and then because we have to end the program, let me just tell our audience what he said. That's not accurate. Milton, explain real quickly what he said that was racist. You recall? And why is it important? Wait a second. Here's why it's important that he be terminated. Let me explain why.
He used a racist, dehumanizing statement as white folks have developed caricatures to illustrate in talking about the size of the man's lip, as if he was not of humankind like he was. We don't refer to each other like that in a respectful manner. It is a disrespectful manner. That's the one statement that got him in trouble dealing with.
Yeah. The other thing, though, wait a second. The other thing that's important is this: is that the person we're talking to he had a contract over $100 million, and he get bonuses. So he's making more than $10 million a year. 7% of the people in the league are Black. So you got a person who's making money off Black laborers at the same time have racial animus. And so as a practical matter, he had to go. They made the right decision. I support their decision. And I think that we cannot defeat racism by simply talk about it. We have to have specific action. When we find it, we have to take it out. Yep. And this was appropriate steps, folks. And this what we have to do it one person at a time. We have a person with this much money and this much influence. When they bring him down, it means something. It sends a message. Attorney Banks, closing comments.
These are final words,
yes.
Closing comments. Get your vaccine, get the booster when it's available, and stay safe.
Attorney Grimes. Closing comment.
Fight racism everywhere you see it, every little piece of it you see it. Do not allow it to exist in your presence. I have tried to do that ever since George Floyd died. I cannot be tolerant of any form of racism that I see. I think we're doing a disservice to our mankind if we do that, our humankind.
I concur with both comments, and I might add that folks, get your vaccine, get your booster. The life you save may be your own. And may God protect and keep you until we speak once again. And thank you for joining us today, and thank you for our callers. And may God keep and bless you until we once talk again. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.